New York Governor Andrew Cuomo signed a bill to get rid of an archaic law that banned barbers from working on Sundays in the state of New York. Most barbers didn't even know the law existed because it was rarely enforced. You know, like most laws in New York these days, right? Cuomo called the law sheer madness.
Sheer.
Yeah, get it?
Like that.
Hey, he could write for this show. He'd probably do that better than he's governing New York right now, so maybe he should. Now, I don't want to get snippy. But
Yes, you do.
Yeah, but I think shutting down every shop 7 days a week for months, that's the real madness. So is thinking that churches should be forced to close on Sundays. Personally, though, I think it's good to keep Sunday as a day of rest. A lot of New Yorkers would love to know there's at least one day a week when Andrew Cuomo is taking a break from being their governor. Yes. Now,
Well, Governor, you know, speaking of barbers, I can't help but notice you've kind of been out of a barber shop for a while.
yeah, well, you know, I decided I'm going to grow my own mask. I figured that'd be one thing. And plus, I'm thinking about maybe, shooting for a part on a remake of Duck Dynasty. What do you think?
That's something, yeah. We could be your family on Duck Dynasty.
I like that, yeah. If Trey gets old enough to grow a beard, it'll be probably something he could do too. There you go. Hey, speaking of hairy situations, a video went viral from Duffy's Sports Grill in Miami. This is crazy. It showed a woman standing in the packed restaurant, styling her hair with a heat brush, right in the middle of the restaurant.
Whoa.
The owner suggested ladies leave their hot combs at home and just come for the hot wings.
You know, I've never used hot wings for any kind of hair stuff, but I can't imagine that works very well.
I don't think it does. You know, I think you're right about that, Keith. But, you know, in emergencies, dipping sauce could make for a great hair mousse. I mean, you've heard of dippity-doo, right?
You know, we were talking about this earlier. Our young, inexperienced director, Stephen Fogelman,
Never
heard of dippity-doo. Can you imagine somebody never heard of dippity-doo?
Yeah, because he's young and we're old and we've heard of it.
We have better products than dippity-doo, I guess.
Well, anyway, by the way, if ladies want something to maybe use in their hair, I suggest barbecue sauce. Either for their hair or for perfume, because I'm going to tell you, you put barbecue sauce all over yourself, ladies, men won't care what your hair looks like.
Don't care.
Put that sauce on.
Oh, you've got a hair on your shoulder.
Yeah, there we go. Next, the Bible lists 10 plagues that God visited upon Egypt. Today, we have an 11th, bureaucrats. But that's a problem that reaches far beyond just the United States. A Dutch TV producer built a biblical museum inside a giant floating replica of Noah's Ark. But it has been stuck in Ipswich, England for 18 months, no end in sight because he can't get the permits to tow it back to Holland. The Coast Guard claims that it lacks many requirements for a ship, like life jackets and lifeboats. I guess you'd need those for every animal on Earth in that ark. But the owner says it's not a ship. It's classified as a non-certified floating object. And it may be impossible to get all the certificates, permits, and registrations that they've been demanding. It might take a miracle.
There you go.
Like bringing in Moses to part the sea of paperwork. Can you imagine if the real Noah had to get government permits? Some amateur building something like that in his backyard? Folks, none of us would be here.
None.
People wonder, why did God do all this stuff in the old days? Because that's why right there. I mean, everyone would have drowned while the bureaucrats were arguing over how long a cubit is.
I always wondered, I always wondered what Noah did about pest control. You know that had to be a problem on the ark.
You can ask him when we all get to heaven.
I'm going to.
There's a lot of questions I got for a bunch of those guys. That's one of them. The other one I'm going to ask directly to God. Why'd you make snakes?
Exactly.
I mean, seriously, could we have just left those out of the ecosystem? Skunks? Yeah. I'd rather have a skunk than a snake, just to be honest with you.
Mother-in-laws.
Whoa.
Just saying.
Yeah, let me give you a little say-in. I don't know where the rest of us will be on Thanksgiving Day, but I can tell you where you're not going to be on Thanksgiving Day.
I see fast food in your future.
He better make a hotel reservation. Whoa. Well, without Noah's Ark, we wouldn't have this story. In Dalton, Georgia, a raccoon got into someone's house and couldn't figure how to get out. So the fire department had to come rescue him. They tweeted this photo and said the raccoon seemed awfully embarrassed. In fact, he was so embarrassed, he was hiding his face when he was already wearing a mask. I mean, he looks almost as embarrassed as a Georgia election official. That's how embarrassed he is. All right, we better end this before I have to hide my face in embarrassment. But until next time, always remember that we read the news. Now, if you're seeing this, I know you've enjoyed that video. I mean, how could you not, after all? So, you know what you should do? Leave a like, click on the subscribe button below, and hit the notification bell next to it so you'll always know when I have another video up for you to enjoy.